Hello everyone. Welcome to this B1 English listening practice video. You can use this video to practice your listening and comprehension as I speak. Today, I'm going to talk about tipping. This is a great topic to discuss with people from different countries, because each country has its own attitudes and customs when it comes to this subject. So, first of all, what is tipping? Tipping is when you give a little bit of extra money to a person who does some service for you. This money isn't included in the official cost of the service. It's money that you give on top of that. So, who do we give tips to, and how do we calculate the correct sum of money to give? Well, that depends 100% on where you live. I'm going to focus mainly on tipping in America since that's the country that I'm from. Tipping in America is often a stressful process for foreigners who are visiting the country. The reason for this is that the US has a tipping culture that's unparalleled anywhere else. No other country treats this subject the way that America does. Let's talk about restaurants in the US, which is the primary place where people tip. In the past, like when I was a kid, it was standard practice to leave a 15% gratuity. Gratuity, by the way, is a fancy word for tip. So most people left a 15% gratuity when they ate at a normal restaurant. If the service was exceptional, then maybe you'd give a little more. But if the service was normal, then 15% was the standard. Now, fast forward to today, and 15% is barely even acceptable at many places. Sometimes when you pay by card in certain establishments, you'll have to use a touchscreen to choose the amount that you want to tip and then sign it. Well, sometimes this screen doesn't even give you the initial option to tip 15%. It will say 18%, 20%, and 22%, or something like that. If you want to choose a different amount, then you'll have to select that option and type in the amount. They pressure you into tipping at least 18%. I think this is crazy. I think 15% is perfectly fair, and we shouldn't feel bullied into giving more. But it seems like most of the country is happy to fork over 18% no matter how the service was, and so 18% has become the new norm. In other countries, most people do not tip 18%. In Mexico, for instance, tipping 10% is normal, and in some countries, tipping at restaurants isn't even a big thing. But in the US, if you choose not to leave a tip, the waiter will come up to you and ask you what the matter is. It's simply unacceptable not to leave a tip, even if the service was below average. It might not be a law, but it sure feels like one. Aside from restaurants, it's also common for Americans to leave tips for other services. If you get your hair cut, you'd better leave a tip for the barber. When I get my hair cut in Mexico, I always leave a tip. And the barber looks really grateful because that's not customary for most Mexicans. How about you? Do you tip your barber? Another person you need to tip is the bellhop or the hotel porter. This is the guy that helps you with your luggage when you're checking in and out of a hotel. And one other hotel worker that Americans tip is the maid. Some non-Americans might be surprised to hear this, but it's true. Americans usually leave a tip for the housekeeper at the end of their stay at a hotel. We put the money on the corner of the table in our hotel room before we check out. As you can see, Americans tip like crazy. Some people really like this type of culture and think it's great that these workers receive big tips. Other people think that there are some inconsistencies when it comes to tipping in the US. Like, for example, if we tip waiters at restaurants, why shouldn't we tip the cashier at McDonald's? Regardless of how you feel about tipping, one thing's for sure. If you travel to the US, you're going to have to factor tips into your travel budget. Okay, now I'm going to ask you 3 questions about today's video to check your comprehension. 1. What's another word we can use for tip? 2. What's one type of worker besides waiters that Americans leave tips for? 3. Where do we leave the money when we tip maids at hotels? Leave a comment and answer the questions. I'll see you next time.